I mean, I really enjoyed the years I lived in Iran. It was from, as I mentioned, 98 to 2001, and it was such it's a fascinating country. It's so intellectually challenging. And I, because of my own academic background and research in the Arab world, I had a particular interest in the clerics, so I did a lot of research on the clerical establishment. I went to Gul many times and wrote a book that was primarily about religion in Iran to some degree, the sort of fusion of religion and politics. So it was extremely interesting. I think, however, that, and we've seen it with these past demonstrations, that Iran hasn't reached the point where there is room in this ideological framework for free expression, for a free political system, for a free press. I think that it's unfortunate that there hasn't been as much progress as Iranians themselves would like to see. I did a lot of articles, published a lot of articles that they didn't really agree with, or that they felt were damaging to the system. One of which was I interviewed Ayatollah Montazeri when he was in house arrest. The questions that we prepared for Ayatollah Montazeri were really about religion and about Shiite theology, and he felt that he was interested in answering. So he answered, and this was the first time he had spoken in many years publicly. That began my, I guess, tainted status with the Islamic Guidance Ministry. And then after that, I began to be watched quite closely. I also wrote a lot of articles about the student movement, because at that time the student movement was becoming a bit split. Even though they had helped elect President Khatami, then President Khatami, they were not very pleased with the reforms, the state of reforms, so they wanted to become engaged in acts of civil disobedience. They were planning demonstrations on the campuses, this kind of thing. So I reported all of this, and then it became a situation where the reform movement, and I hate to use that terminology as well, but we should say the activists around President Khatami began to think that I was counterproductive to their cause, because I was reporting the difficulties in carrying out reforms in Iran. And again, the message back here was, oh, this is going to be the great opening. There's going to be the end of sort of the hostility between the United States and Iran. President Khatami is going to completely change the system. And when I was in Iran, it was clear that that was not the case. So in the end, it was several interviews, including one with Akbar Ganji, that they basically decided that they wrote a fax to me and my husband at the time, who was the Reuters bureau chief, that we had committed crimes against the Islamic Republic. And both the British and the Swiss ambassadors advised us to leave the country as soon as possible. In 1999, when there were demonstrations, I was on the streets then. Yes, there was tear gas and there was some shooting, but there was in no degree the violence that we saw this time. Why? Because the stakes are higher now. Opposition movements around the world, they have access to technology, to internet, to satellite, to Twitter, to Facebook, to all of these mechanisms that encourage protests, that can encourage protests. So you have a completely new, wired generation that is a lot less fearful than students were in 1999. When I lived in Iran in 1999, it was absolutely taboo to question the authority of Supreme Leader Khamenei. Of course, now that taboo has been completely shattered. There are now even clerics and clerical associations questioning his authority and his legitimacy as Supreme Leader. So we're far along the way towards some sort of reform today than 1999. I remember in the days that I used to interview the students who were supporting President Khatami, and I would ask them, well, people in the West, they think that you want some sort of Western democracy here that's devoid of religion. And they would say, no, we just want some sort of democratic process within an Islamic framework. We don't want to live completely outside an Islamic state. But these things take generations to work out. So I think we have to be careful in declaring what all Iranians want or what a majority of Iranians want, because I don't think they've even answered that question for themselves.